The story of humanity is filled with countless interesting facts. In addition to the key dates and figures you studied in school, there are many events that often go unnoticed. Prepare yourself, as we are about to share 15 historical facts that might surprise you. Number 15. Dozens of fraudsters once claimed to be Marie Antoinette's dead son. After the French Revolution, 8-year-old Louis Charles was imprisoned. From that time on, he was never seen in public again. The mystery is, what happened to him? Louis Charles of France was cherished as the son of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. When he was 4 years old, he became the heir to the French throne following his brother's passing and was meant to be crowned as King Louis XVII. After the French Revolution dismantled his family and his parents were executed in 1793, he found himself locked up in a cell at the Temple prison in Paris. Within those walls, he faced mistreatment and endured hunger. Sadly, on June 8, 1795, Louis Charles passed away from tuberculosis. He was just 10 years old then. The young lad was buried in secret to prevent any suspicion. Several years later, many men came forward saying they were the rightful heir to the throne. Among the more than 100 pretenders, the most well-known was Charles Guillaume Naundorf. There were several practical reasons why con artists chose to pretend to be the king. If they succeeded, they could potentially claim the French throne. Many of these fraudsters acquired riches, recognition, and admiration, which inspired others to follow in their footsteps. Number 14. Women were once banned from smoking in public. On January 21, 1908, New York enacted the Sullivan Ordinance, which banned women from smoking in public. Many women did not view this prohibition as significant until it was overturned 2 weeks later by Mayor George McClellan. Rather than penalizing the women smoking, the ordinance held business owners accountable where the incidents occurred. Reports indicate that the sole individual who ever broke this law was a woman named Katie Mulcahy. While no particular legal measures were enforced against her, she was required to pay a fine of $15. When she declined to pay, she was arrested. The reasoning behind this law may appear absurd to you, but during that period, a woman smoking cigarettes was viewed as dangerously provocative, immoral, and untrustworthy. Isn't that odd? Men, on the other hand, could smoke anytime and anywhere they pleased. The government's attempt to restrict smoking only for women reveals a great deal about society's perception of women during that period. Number 13. Forks were considered blasphemous. Did you know that forks were once thought to be sinful? In simpler terms, using a fork was seen as a serious offense. Forks emerged in Italy during the 11th century and were viewed as man-made hands, which made them seem inappropriate. After all, God provided us with fingers to use as natural forks. Although forks have been around for a long time, they only became popular as eating tools during the Middle Ages. The labeling of forks as blasphemous started in the 11th century when a Byzantine princess surprised the royal court by introducing forks to her new husband's household in Venice. She presented a golden fork at a time when most Europeans still ate using only their fingers and knives. Local religious leaders denounced the use of these artificial utensils, implying that fingers were the natural option. It was not until the early 18th century that forks gained acceptance in England. At first, only two-pronged forks were utilized. It took another 100 years for the addition of the third and fourth prongs. Over time, the use of forks became a social matter. Some social classes embraced them, while others ridiculed those who did. Number 12. The Titanic's owners never claimed the ship was unsinkable. If you have watched James Cameron's famous movie from 1997, you might think the owners of the Titanic were sure the ship would never sink. But that's not the case. Some expert magazines referred to the Titanic as almost unsinkable before it went down. Several survivors said they chose to join the first voyage because they believed the ship could not sink. In reality, the shipbuilder Harland and Wolff never asserted that the ship was unsinkable. This idea originated from an advertising campaign by the White Star Line, which highlighted the great safety features of the Olympic and Titanic vessels. In their remarks, they mentioned, "These two incredible ships are designed to be unsinkable as much as possible." During that period, many people believed that science could solve all human issues. Nonetheless, the Titanic's sinking caused a decline in public faith in science. Number 11. France built a fake Paris to fool German bombers during World War I. The French government attempted to deceive the Germans in World War I by constructing a phony version of Paris. This mock city was created due to concerns about a potential nighttime air attack. The imitation Paris, featuring copies of well-known monuments, was located a few miles away from the actual Paris. The concept was developed in 1917, a few years after the Germans first bombed Paris in 1914. Reports indicate that during real attacks, the lights in Paris were turned off at night. However, in the simulated Paris, the lighting was lowered to create the impression that people were making an effort, but not succeeding in hiding in the darkness. Sadly, the simulated Paris was never entirely finished because the war concluded in 1918. As per the design by Italian engineer Fernan Jacopozzi, the city was intended to consist of 3 areas, but in the end, only one was constructed. The imaginary city was torn down after the war concluded. Naturally, the plan remained confidential. Number 10. The German town of Nordlingen is built inside a 14-million-year-old meteor crater. The town of Nordlingen, situated in the Donau-Ries area of Bavaria, is one of a kind in the world. Home to 20,000 residents, the town is entirely enclosed within a large meteorite crater called Nordlinger Ries. This crater was created approximately 14,500,000 years ago, when a meteor about 1 mile wide collided with our planet. Not long ago, proof came to light regarding the real beginnings of this town. For a long time, people believed that the low area where the town sits was a volcanic crater. In 1960, though, 2 American researchers, Eugene Shoemaker and Edward Chow, demonstrated that the depression was actually formed by a meteorite hitting the ground. According to reports, Shoemaker attempted to determine the composition of the church walls and found shocked quartz, which is a kind of rock that forms exclusively from a meteorite strike. Further investigation of the geological structures showed that the crater was caused by a meteorite impact instead of volcanic activity. Number 9. Persians once used cats as shields in the Battle of Pelusium. You might have heard that the ancient Egyptians lost the Battle of Pelusium due to their fondness for cats. They held cats in such high regard that they couldn't bring themselves to harm them, even if it meant risking their own lives. They saw cats as representations of the goddess Bastet, who is associated with home, fertility, and the mysteries of women. This deep affection for cats was especially evident during the Persian invasion of Egypt. The Persian king Cambyses II, who reigned from 529 to 522 before Christ, understood how much the Egyptians loved cats. As a result, the Persians collected as many cats as they could and positioned them, along with dogs and sheep, also revered by the Egyptians, before their troops during the fight. The Persians decorated their shields with images of cats. The ancient Egyptians were hesitant to harm cats due to their fear of angering the goddess Bastet. As a result, they had to retreat from the battlefield, leading to their defeat in the Battle of Pelusium in 525 years before Christ and coming under Persian control. Number 8. The Greeks believed that beans contained the souls of the dead. You may recall the Greek mathematician and philosopher Pythagoras from your geometry lessons. He also led his own group. His disciples lived together, explored the cosmos, and followed a vegetarian diet. Unlike modern vegetarians who steer clear of meat, Pythagoras' followers avoided beans. They viewed beans, or fava beans, as a representation of death and kept them off their plates. Pythagoras' idea that beans were a form of cannibalism drew considerable interest, even among ancient authors. Because fava beans looked like meat, Pythagoreans thought they could hold the spirits of the deceased. The flowers with black spots, and the hollow stems made some followers believe these plants were linked to the earth and the underworld, acting as pathways for human souls. What Pythagoras despised ultimately led to his demise. According to legend, he spent some time in a cave, evading a dictator. He was fleeing from pursuers who caught up to him when he was stopped by a patch of blooming beans, preventing him from continuing his flight. Number 7. Alexander the Great was accidentally buried alive. Alexander the Great established an empire that is thought to be the biggest in the ancient world. When he was just 25 years old, his forces took over Persian lands in Asia Minor, Syria, and Egypt, remaining undefeated. Sadly, at the age of 32, he unexpectedly passed away in Babylon. For many years, historians have been working to understand the reason behind his death. Some people believe his death was due to typhoid, others think it was caused by alcoholism or possibly poisoning. Nevertheless, the enigma surrounding his demise may have been unraveled. This military mastermind had a neurological disorder known as Guillain-Barré syndrome. This uncommon illness left him entirely paralyzed for 6 days, rendering him unable to move, speak, or breathe. It is possible that the ancient Macedonian leader was still living while his troops were getting his body ready for burial in 323 before Christ. Dr. Catherine Hall from the Dunedin School of Medicine in New Zealand determined that Alexander actually passed away 6 days later than was previously believed. As a result, his death is regarded as the most well-known instance of pseudo-thanatos, which refers to a false diagnosis of death in history. Number 6. Female gladiators existed in ancient Rome. While there is minimal proof in art, laws, and written accounts of women gladiators taking part in the harsh sport during the Roman Empire, these women did engage in fierce battles with one another using weapons, though not nearly as often as men did. Women from various social classes took part, including those from the upper class. However, only affluent women had the means and leisure to train. During the 1st century before Christ, women could be observed competing in multiple duels after mealtime. These fights, particularly against animals, dwarfs, and other women, were arranged by emperors Nero, Titus, and Domitian in the flourishing city of Pompeii. A female gladiator was referred to as a gladiatrix. Female gladiators were advertised as unusual attractions. However, in the years 11 and 19 AD, the Roman Senate enacted laws that banned women from the middle and upper classes from participating as gladiators. Number 5. During the Great Depression, people made clothes from food sacks. In the time of the Great Depression, a popular phrase was, "Use what you have, wear it out, make it work, or go without." This was because a lot of families were unable to purchase new clothing from stores. When women in the countryside had trouble finding fabric for sewing, they began using big flour or animal feed bags, creating everything from dresses to shirts and underwear for both boys and girls. They even mended socks and fixed holes in clothes using scraps of sacks. Before long, businesses that made flour and feed sacks recognized this trend and began printing new designs on the sacks. This creative approach continued and shaped the modern vintage market, even after the Great Depression was over. Number 4. Athletes in the ancient Olympic Games competed naked. For many years, nudity was a feature of the ancient Olympic Games. This custom started in the 8th century before Christ. Athletes took part without clothes to pay tribute to the Greek god Zeus. They aimed to display their strong bodies and physical power, partly to overwhelm their rivals. Athletes drew motivation from the portrayal of nudity in Greek hero art and sculptures. This inspired them to train more intensely and achieve success in competitions. In ancient Greece, anyone who won an Olympic event was seen as a demigod. According to some accounts, Orsippus, a runner from Megara, was the first to race without clothing. It is said that his loincloth slipped off during the race, which supposedly made him run faster. Other accounts suggest that the first athlete to compete nude was Acanthus from Sparta, who argued that being naked was part of Spartan customs. Number 3. A pig was executed in France in 1386. In the year 1386, a pig faced execution in Falaise, northern France, marking one of the lesser-known animal trials in history. A wild pig attacked a 3-month-old infant named Jean Le Masson, who ultimately succumbed to his injuries. The pig was captured and kept in custody alongside human prisoners. An official trial began, and a lawyer was assigned to defend it. How ridiculous! At the conclusion of the trial, the creature was judged guilty and condemned to be publicly executed by hanging. On the day of the execution, the creature was dressed in male attire and brought to the square. To follow the principle of an eye for an eye, the creature was first harmed and mutilated with a knife before it was hung. Both humans and animals were present at the execution. This event marked another instance where wild pigs faced the death penalty for harming people, yet only a few were disfigured. In another situation in the year 1457, 6 young piglets were spared from murder charges because of their young age, while their mother was put to death. It's quite absurd, isn't it? Number 2. President Zachary Taylor died from cherry poisoning. When American President Zachary Taylor passed away on July 9, 1850, after a short illness, he had only held office for 16 months, and the exact reason for his death was not officially determined then. You may find it interesting how many different theories exist regarding the actual cause of his death. Different sources offered various explanations. One theory suggested that on July 4th, Taylor consumed a considerable amount of cherries and drank iced milk during a celebration. He then went back to the White House and drank a few glasses of water, which could have had bacteria that cause cholera. Another source suggests that Taylor may have passed away from gastroenteritis due to the mix of very acidic cherries and fresh milk. Other physicians thought it might be food poisoning or typhoid. Taylor's medical team identified the cause of death as cholera morbus, an old term used by doctors to refer to gastroenteritis, which is the inflammation of the small intestine due to bacteria, viruses, or parasites. The signs included intense cramps, diarrhea, nausea, and dehydration. Number 1. Russia ran out of vodka while celebrating the end of World War II. On May 9, 1945, the announcement of Nazi Germany's surrender prompted joyous celebrations among the people of the Soviet Union, so much so that even those who usually abstained from alcohol began to drink. What led to such happiness? The surrender marked the conclusion of the Great Patriotic War, which had taken more than 26 million lives. Around 22 hours after the celebrations of victory started, Joseph Stalin spoke to the nation. By that moment, reports indicated that people had already finished all the vodka available in the country, which was quite rare. The entire nation then entered a shared hangover, viewed as a minor consequence for freeing Europe from Nazi Germany's control. What other historical facts do you know? Share them with us in the comments. We hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to check out more videos we've prepared for you, click on one of them on the screen or visit our channel. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.